everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are going to make a really simple yet elegant stenciled card. I started out with some inks from Catherine Pooler. These all just kind of fit into the color scheme I chose. We have Catherine Pooler's Tranquil, Stone Blue, Orange Peel, Tiara, and Green Tea. And I chose these colors based off of Volume 1 from the color box. This is card number 217, and these colors just match perfectly. I went to my little swatch book that I have and matched these colors really, really well, I thought. So that's where the color inspiration came from today. I have a 5x7 cream colored heavyweight card base here. This is from Paper Studio. I just made that myself. We have PinkFresh Daisy Wreath. I'm showing you the die, but we don't actually use the die. We're just using the stencils today. This is PinkFresh's Ornate Banner die, and I'm using the largest one today. I end up using the leftovers that you see inside that storage pocket right there. I actually die cut that wreath out just so I could have a better visualization of where this was going to go on this banner. That blue mat is just a Cricut mat that I have cut down, and I use that to stencil on. It's big enough that it can hold my stencils off to the side, and then if I need extra help in holding stencils, I have the magnets from my glass board. So I just used that die cut to help me figure out where I wanted to place this wreath on this banner, and I figured out that this is kind of where I wanted it, and so I'm going to just go ahead and start stenciling. We're going to start with the green tea ink from Catherine Pooler, and this, I'm not sure what number stencil this is, but this is the one that has the bulk of the leaves on it. It doesn't have the branch or the veins in the leaves. It is just like what would typically be your lightest color for your leaves. It's not a detail layer. So I'm just going to take a ink blending brush and my green tea ink and ink all over that. And then I do a little trick to help me line up these stencils. So instead of having to kind of figure out this all over again, what I do is I wipe off my stencil while it's still on the cardstock. And then I'm going to actually take my next stencil. This is the one that has the big florals on it, which would be the lightest color. And I'm going to lay that on top of the stencil that I already have. And then I will kind of slip that out from underneath. And then I don't have to sit there and fiddle and figure out which direction this goes. This stencil is fairly forgiving. It's kind of a more whimsical than like ultra realistic, which I like. I don't seem to do very well when it's ultra realistic. I feel like it never turns out like I hope. So this is just an easier way for me to get things to line up. So I'm just going to take those stencils and then we're going to stencil in the flower using that Tranquil blue, which is the lighter blue. It's just called Tranquil, not Tranquil blue. We're going to use the Tranquil just to color in the lightest part of, or the main body and petals of our flowers. I'm going to wipe my stencil off one more time. And then I kind of changed things up. So I still wanted to be able to use that other stencil so to help me align things. So I took the stencil that would be next and I put it on the bottom, and I put the stencil that I just used on the top and put them together. And then I'm looking through that to line up the flowers, and then I can line up this next stencil way easier. And this is the detail layer on those flowers. So we're going to use the darker blue, which is Stone Blue. And again, this is just another way to help you line things up. Sometimes it's easier to have the next stencil on the top. Sometimes it's easier to have it on the bottom and kind of slip things out. It just kind of depends. This actually worked a little bit better than putting the new stencil, trying to slip the new stencil into the bottom. But here we're going to go ahead and stencil in that detail layer on those flowers with that Stone Blue from Catherine Pooler. And then we will lift that up and continue the same process of just kind of laying in the stencil and stenciling in our particular color. And that's just a little peek at what we've got so far. I'm going to move on to the third stencil, and this is the floral centers, and I did those in the tiara. I didn't even bother trying to line that up. That was really simple. It's literally like 2 dots. So that was really easy to line up. But we're going to go ahead and ink blend that in, and then we will move on to the next layer. And this layer does some of the veining and kind of completes the wreath. Now, something of note here, I'm using the orange peel, and this is an orange going over a green. Sometimes that will make brown. So just be cautious of that when you're choosing your colors. It turned out fine and I liked the end results, but if you are really concerned about it and don't want to make brown in any way, shape, or form, it almost looks like a rust orange. It just kind of deepened and I guess desaturated that orange peel a little more, which I thought was a really pretty ending. So a really pretty outcome. But if you are a little more conscious of your colors and don't want to incorporate a new color into your palette, then choose a color that is not complementary to one another. So I peeled that off of my mat, and here I'm just showing you a little more that it kind of deepens and desaturates that orange a little more. So I have my 5x7 card base, and I have some leftovers from a previous card I made, and this is just the kind of middle banner. I used it to make a frame. I had the largest and that one taped together, and I made frames, and this was kind of the one that popped out. So I'm just going to glue all of these together and then glue them to the back of this stenciled banner. And as I got to looking at this, I kind of realized that I wanted that 5x7 card to be just a little bit smaller. So I think this ends up being like 5x6. I just take an inch off of the long side. I felt like the proportions of this worked a lot better. And I think this is the second time I've done this, of having the intent of making a 5x7 card and just not liking how the proportions looked and end up cutting it down. So for my sentiment, I have this Altenew stamp set Bergenia. I don't know if that's how you pronounce that, but I pronounce it Bergenia Builder. And I'm just kind of playing on where I want this sentiment to go and what I want it to look like. Now, because I have the those solid pieces of cardstock behind this, I can actually stamp in this stenciled banner without worrying about misstamping, because I've got gaps in the dimension. I don't have any gaps in the dimension this time because I have those solid pieces of cardstock behind there. So just to be safe, I do put this in my mini Misty and stamp out this sentiment. I aligned it in that top left corner just because in my mind that worked out better. I don't know. And then I'm taking the sentiment that says "You are special." I thought that was really a pretty sentiment. I think sometimes we need to know that we are special, that we are thought about, that we are important. And I just really liked that sentiment for this card. So I brought back that stone blue ink. That is the same blue that is the kind of detail layer on those flowers. And I have wiped off that sentiment. I've never used it before. And so I just used my finger to kind of wipe that residue from the manufacturing off. And I thought I would have to stamp this twice, but it stamped beautifully. So no need to stamp that twice. Stamped great the first time. So I'm just going to pull that out of my Misty, and this is what we have so far. And I think it looks wonderful. I did take that card base and flip it over and stamp my logo on the back. And then I'm going to glue this sentiment, or excuse me, this banner down, the stenciled banner down flat-ish. I mean, there is a little bit of dimension there with those extra pieces of cardstock behind it. But I like the wet glue because I very rarely do I ever adhere things down correctly the first time. So I really like the wet glue and the fact that it gives me some time to wiggle things into the right place. I have some clear, like iridescent sequins for my stash. I got these off of Amazon, and I store them in that little container that you see off to the left. That's just where I store all of my sequins and that kind of thing. I'm going to fiddle for an enormous amount of time, a ridiculous amount of time, trying to get these sequins where I want them. But I will end up gluing those down with some wet glue. I just take my little jewel picker glue and a glue bottle that has some reptile glue in it with a precision tip. And I just pick them up with my little jewel picker guy and set them in place. I thought these were really pretty sequins. They picked up kind of the colors around it, and they were really like, they look pink in the video, but when they're actually on the card, they have a tendency to kind of pick up the colors that are around them, and they look really, really pretty. So I'm just going to glue these in place, and then that is it. That is the whole card. So it's very simple, but very pretty and elegant. And again, sometimes you just need to know that you're so special. So thank you for joining me, and we will see you next time.